Welcome to the C.S. Joseph podcast. I'm your host, C.S. Joseph, and we're doing more Acolyte questions because I have a crap ton of them to get through, and we're just going to be blazing through as many as we can to get us back to our daily posting of what we've been doing on YouTube, and also got a little bit more than that. Got Season 14, Part 4, as well as Season 24 that we're going to be presenting here on the YouTube channel as well. So more to come, and thank you all for being patient with me. It has been a very fascinating, interesting situation from the beginning of the year. So today's Acolyte question is, how can an ENTP get the most out of an ESFP friendship to better one's self? And this is known as a superego relationship, also one of the 8 sexually compatible relationships, which is also known as the challenge relationship or the refinement relationship. And basically what these two types do to one another is refine each other and improve each other throughout. And this applies to all of the superego relationships. So for example, if you were an INFJ, this would be like them doing that with an ISTJ, for example. Or if it was an ENFP, that would be like with an ESTP, ENFP friendship, etc. But this is basically a friendship. But what kind of friendship actually matters? Is this between 2 women? Is this between 2 men? Is this between a man and a woman? All these different kinds of relationships actually fundamentally change the dynamics of what's happening within the relationship. If it is 2 men, then it is a shoulder-to-shoulder relationship, and you know how it goes. You know, men do where women talk. If it's a woman-to-woman relationship, it is still shoulder to shoulder, but with the outcome of maybe about discussing things than it is actually about doing things. Because from their perspective, the more women they have, the more likely they are able to reach a consensus, or at least the women like to clump up together in groups and have their stitch and bitch sessions, basically. That's ultimately what happens, But men, however, if this is a male friendship, it's all focused on doing something. Men don't really come together unless they're doing something. So, like for example, the last time I hung out with my friends, I went trap shooting with them. It was to go ultimately to shooting, and yeah, we talked about a few things here and there, but ultimately it is shooting. Or if we're at the cigar lounge talking about things, it's because we're there to smoke cigars and maybe drink Oaxacan old fashions, and the talking is a secondary thing. Whereas with women, talking is a primary thing versus doing is a secondary thing. So stitch and bitch, the bitch part is actually the primary thing, whereas the stitch part is the secondary thing. The point is that regardless of which of these situations, the superego relationship actually exists to refine the other person. These types are not afraid to criticize each other, and they subject each other with their critic functions and parent functions ad libitum. The extroverted feeling critic of the ESFP likes to consistently challenge the moral faculties, the moral proclivities of the ENTP, and the extroverted thinking critic of the ENTP loves to challenge the ESFP on their intellectual faculties, or basically how intelligent the ESFP is. The ENTP is concerned with the ESFP just following the bouncing ball, taking everyone at their word, and then living life accordingly, whereas the ESFP is more concerned of the ENTP not necessarily actually being a good person, which is definitely something that I have personally experienced, especially in my first marriage, because I was married to an ESFP woman. And throughout our marriage, this was consistent. I remember getting on her about listening to the wrong people and valuing the opinions of other people over myself consistently. She would constantly call out my moral decision-making and how my priorities were completely wrong on a regular basis. And honestly, I think given our age and given everything that we've been through in our lives, I think both of us were actually correct. We were the same age within about 6 months of each other. She was born in June. I was born in February. So like about 4 month difference to a point, 4 months and a week basically. And it was pretty difficult. But the thing is that how she was criticizing me versus how I was criticizing her, I believe that we were both right. I definitely did have the wrong priorities, and oftentimes she was not behaving in an intelligent way, and would oftentimes put other people's opinions a lot higher than my own, right? And so we would continue to challenge each other in these areas. And eventually, this would actually, through cognitive orbit, which is ultimately what this relationship is really all about. It's about maximizing cognitive orbit, because while we're using our own critic functions to basically slam the other person, what this is doing is actually growing our parent functions. And this is a relationship that, or a friendship that basically builds up personal responsibility. The challenge relationship is all about building up personal responsibility. And that's ultimately what it's all about. That's ultimately what needs to be done, or what needs to be said between these two people. So honestly, like, if people have underdeveloped parent functions, this is they need a friendship. They need a relationship like this. The ESFP, but honestly, like, I think it would even be more suited if they had like a same gender friendship, basically woman on woman, man on man friendship from a shoulder to shoulder perspective, not an actual sexual relationship, which is face to face. Because regardless of which one of these types is the woman within a sexual relationship, it'd be very hard for her to submit to the man. It'd be very difficult, just by default, just by the nature of critic functions and the cognitive orbit of their critic function, basically improving your parent function, because the challenge, the critic, is constantly in your face on a regular basis, which can grow your parent. But in a sexual relationship, it's not really that sustainable. And while this is technically one of the long-term relationships for sexual compatibility, it is one of the relationships that is most difficult to actually sustain because of that challenge. Now, I always say, like, when it comes to sexual relationships, the challenge or the refinement relationship or the superego relationship represents basically it's an option for those who have extremely high body counts, and they're just kind of bored with anyone and everyone that they meet in their life. And because of that, psychologically bored, that is, and because of that, they want a challenge. They end up in this relationship because this relationship consistently keeps them on their toes. The difference is that, especially in Western society, it's extremely difficult for the woman within this sexual relationship to actually submit, just based on the cognitive orbit nature of their critic function sharpening your parent function and your critic function sharpening their parent function. It makes it very, very difficult for submission to actually take place, right? So, but in the context of a friendship, which honestly, there really is no male or female friends thing. If there is, like, honestly, if you're a woman who have male friends, honestly, those male friends secretly want to have sex with you, and you just need to be aware of that. Like, the sexual agenda is always there. If you're a man and you're not being honest with a woman about your desire to have sex with her, then you shouldn't be around her, and you're kind of like not actually a man, and you're not worthy of her anyway, so you should like get the hell out. So avoid relationships where the sexual friendships where the sexual agenda is present. Just don't do it. It's like really dumb. Like, it's actually stupid. What you should be doing is that when it comes to friendships, just be friends with your own gender. Seriously, just be friends with your own gender. You will learn the most about the other gender from people of your same gender, your same biological gender, basically. Same thing goes, from women, men. It doesn't matter, right? So, and then utilize each other to sharpen each other up. So it is written, as iron sharpens iron, so does one man to another. And that's ultimately what can happen, for a shoulder-to-shoulder, male-to-male ENTP, ESFP friendship. So how can an ENTP get the most out of it? Well, the ENTP basically needs to be willing to expose themselves and not hide anything, and be 100% brutally honest, even to the point of self-deprecation, to the ESFP. You have to be willing to share, and even in some cases overshare, as annoying as the ESFP would find that, because I do find that really annoying. The difference is, though, is that when they start using their extroverted feeling critic, you need to start listening, and you need to literally look at how they prioritize things in their life, basically, and then create a system, because you're triple systematic, create a system that actually gives you, the ENTP, the opportunity to utilize how they go about prioritizing things, and learn a way that you can prioritize things in a similar manner. This will actually help you build up your introverted feeling trickster, while simultaneously build your introverted thinking parent, because you will actually know what is true and what is false between which priorities should be considered and which ones should not. One of the ways that Benjamin Franklin, who is an ENTP, actually did this is that he actually sat down and created a system for prioritization that I believe that he got from an ESFP, or at least he learned the principle from an ESFP. That basically he writes down, the decisions, and he goes through a whole list of pros and cons, and then he just chooses the thing that has the most pros to it, and then makes a decision on that. If he absolutely doesn't know how he feels about things, which for an ENTP is basically default, we usually don't know how to do things. But anyway, that's really what an ENTP can get the most out of an ESFP for, is just utilize that introverted feeling parent to learn how to prioritize things. And if they criticize you on your lack of priority, bother to ask them specifically what it is they do to prioritize things, and then try to create a system based on that feedback that they give you. And that literally is how an ENTP can get the most out of an ESFP relationship to better oneself. So anyway, folks, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.